And howdy, partners. Welcome to the F1 Failcast, where we are reviewing the Bahrain Grand Prix of 2018. Alongside me, as always, is the mercurial taco chum that is Esteban. How are you doing, good sir?
Bono Estende. Really good. I was excited by the way you rolled your R's there after momentarily forgetting what we were here for. I thought that was excellent. That really captures the whole essence of the cast. I've got a little story for you before we start because I've just got home from work. Let me open my Effect Energy drink, the beverage of today.
Powering you through to Q3, hopefully.
Yeah, well, actually, if I was plugging it, I should have said the beverage of tomorrow today. That's a better slogan. So I was walking home, and I have to walk down like a main street, right? And there's all these like roadside cafes and restaurants and stuff with like chairs and tables outside. You know, the usual European city living. And as I was coming to like a junction, there was a mother and a young girl. Like the girl's a toddler, and the mother was chaining the bike that she'd ridden to a bike rack. And the little toddler girl wanders over to a couple who are having dinner at this restaurant. And I'm walking towards them, and this little girl's there, and the woman bends down and goes, "Oh, aren't you adorable?" And the girl reaches up and takes a piece of chicken off the woman's plate and then runs away with it and just eats it on the street.
Finger licking good, bitches.
Yeah. I was like, that is amazing. You were going to go far, kid. You're going to go far.
I bet this. I have this vision of her just turning into a pigeon later on in the evening. I'm morphing. Ba-ba-bum. Oh dear. So the inner Pierre Gasly in the child, clearly.
Indeed, stealing something that by no rights was she supposed to have.
No, like a fourth place.
Fourth place, cough cough. Speaking of fourth place, have a look. Look at that.
Exactly.
What's
Well
going on
done.
there?
Sandwiching the Bottas, the two cheeks of Haas's.
We've still got the butt arsehole.
The Haas cheeks. Oh yes.
We've both got a few trepidations about this round.
We have. I stupidly was playing Gran Turismo just before this broadcast on Suzuka, so I'm going to have to try and de-GT Sport myself and re-F1 2017 myself, which is hard because anyone that's played both of those games knows that, sadly, I love GT Sport, but there is no finesse in the steering for most of the cars that you race. So, yeah, I'm going to be driving like a trucker.
And I'm just shit. But I've played GT Sport as well, and I have to agree with you to the point that I love it too. But I've given it up.
Oh,
I've had to give it up because
like
it gets in the way of my Formula One.
Yeah,
it gets in the way of my Formula One too much. It's much like in real life where I gave up driving because it got in the way of drinking.
Ugh. Well, that was a good decision.
No, definitely, because you know, you want to enjoy your drink with your friends, but if people know that you're a reliable designated driver, then no fun times for you. So,
no,
just sell your car, basically.
And that funds at least some drink for a little while to make it all worthwhile.
I was going to go softs, a softer tyre selection, but then I realised that it makes no difference to my race selection.
No.
Why can I not have super softs in the race?
You can, I think. I don't know if it still has this whole issue of it's decided your two tyre compounds, or whether you can still override that even though it shows it. I get very confused.
Well, because it says I have 6 sets of super softs for quali 3, which doesn't sound right. And then for the race, I have 5 sets of softs and a bunch of mediums.
Excellent, but it takes it all away and assumes that you've given loads of sets back if you don't do practice, which is really annoying. And it's raining anyway. Great.
Oh, monkey balls!
The race is dry though.
What I would really like actually is if we could, in our career mode, have car development. I don't know why it's not there. Like, you not have it
Yeah,
tied
yeah.
to practice sessions, just have it tied to, like, how well you do.
Yeah.
Just like an arbitrary system. Which
Agreed.
track are we at? Japan. Let me load that. I don't think the setup's going to be very friendly to intermediate conditions, but...
No, I was just thinking the same myself. Let's take a wee look.
So we have much to discuss.
So much to discuss.
A very interesting race. So we'll start with qualifying, as we usually do. That is the traditional order of things. I have to admit, bit of a giggle with Verstappen. I'm not.
Yes.
After our last episode, I realised that going into too much detail is as bad as not enough detail. So I'm not going to run down absolutely everybody. We'll just give a general picture. But yeah, that was my quali highlight, to be honest.
Very similar to mine, actually. And he just continues the wonderful overdriving, and we'll come back to him for the race itself, because he also then follows up crash-tastic statistics with such amazing non-committal, it wasn't my fault. In qualifying, he went, oh, something was wrong with the car, that's why I crashed all on my own out on a curb, blah, 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 blah. And people had done that during practice as well. I think Ericsson had done it in practice, and possibly Williams as well, and but not hit the barrier. And yeah, it was just hilarious that he then went, yeah, that was the car's fault, not mine. And then Christian Horner, within the first 5 minutes of the Channel 4 broadcast on the race, went, yeah, that was Max's fault. And I was like, wah, wah.
I've got a 5-place grid penalty for crashing with Ricardo because he braked in front of me.
What?
Yeah, he just braked super hard for no reason. I've lost my front wing and I've got a 5-place grid penalty.
It's only been 60 seconds.
Yeah, I know, but he came out of the pit garage right in front of me, and he's on his warm-up lap, and they sometimes just brake for no reason, don't they?
Yeah, they're a bit overcautious if they spot you if they're on an outlap as well.
Because I was trying to use the draft to sort of get him out of my way for my fast lap.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I can handle a penalty in qualifying. Yeah. Did you hear the details of his excuse though? Because what he said was there was a power burst of 150 horsepower through the back wheels. Huh? And he's like, I don't know what could possibly have made that happen. It's like,
maybe your accelerator.
I've got an inkling. I mean, also, like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe someone more knowledgeable than me could look at that spin and say, okay, that seems accurate. But it just didn't look to me like the sort of accident that would happen with an extra 150 horsepower spinning the rear wheels. It didn't look like that to me. The untrained eye, as I'm known in social circles. It just didn't. It looked like, I'd say overdriving, but it almost didn't. It was a very odd the way he lost it, I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the angle he came in or what, but it didn't look initially to me like if he was going to spin. And then it just did him, didn't it? And I was surprised actually when I saw the replay how hard he hit the wall. Because when I saw the crash happening, I thought he was going to like brush it a little or come to a stop just before it, but no. There were quite a few tweets actually pointing out that he did well to find the wall to crash into on that circuit.
Yeah, I know. There's that is quite a challenge. There's only really there in turn 11 where there is a vague barrier, so he chose well.
Yeah, good lad.
Yeah, yeah, I guess for me, smacks of overdriving. Again, with these latest generation cars, though, it's also showing that once you lose a car, it is mega difficult to even try and get it back, because we saw that throughout all of last year, mainly courtesy of the beautiful Jolien. um, who would manage to bin it everywhere, and it's just cars are very, very difficult to recover from what could have just actually been a very good big moment, if that makes sense.
No, it does, but I think these cars look even worse than last year's. We were talking about this in the Australia review, weren't we? That
Yeah.
particularly the Mercedes and the Red Bull in the hands of Max in particular, were looking very, very sketchy on corner entry, corner exit. I know Gary Anderson picked up on it during pre-season testing. They just look like they're going to throw you off like a bad game of Buckaroo. And
I'm not saying that's bad or good.
Well, it's good if you are playing Buckaroo. It's bad if you're trying to win the Formula One World Championship. Let's look at it that way. Oh shit! Messed that up. First of many. So the cars themselves look very, very nervous this year, I think, and I don't think that's going to help anyone's quali pace.
No.
I'm more curious now, though, about the cars that have ended up doing well, because we touched on the Haas again last time out. That seems to be very, very stable, and maybe that's because it's somewhat more simplistic in aero terms.
Yeah.
But despite all of those observations, I'll say again, it didn't look like those particular issues caused his crash in qualifying.
No.
And I'm surprised, to be honest, that he seems to be getting away with this somewhat. Because I get the feeling if Mark Webber had a DNF rate like Max has had, and I know Max had a lot of DNFs last year that were not his fault, you'd still think that Red Bull, just on a matter of principle, would fire him. I mean, they fire everybody all the time for fun.
Yeah.
Buying the wrong brand of folding bicycle and you're fired. It's a very fire-happy culture, and I don't know how they must be feeling right now, to be honest, because they just signed him in for a long-term contract, and if you take a look outside of Dutch Twitter, there's increasingly a large number of people asking if he's actually as good as everyone was saying he was. Which again, I think shows how reactionary F1 fans are, because he is as good as people were saying that he was. It's just that he's going through a patch where he needs to calm down.
Yeah.
But still, like, for a team like Red Bull that's on the cusp of being a challenger, it can't be very encouraging to have a driver who's quite liable to just fuck it.
Yeah, and especially when we get to Toro Rosso, how they've already had Dietrich, I think it might be Mateschitz, on the phone to Brendan Hartley, saying step it up or you're out because you've mucked up lap one twice in a row, and you just think,
Since we're in the Red Bull camp, why don't we talk about their qualifying? Because I was heartbroken for Brendan Hartley, because he was Q3 material.
Yes.
Absolutely he was. And I was really gutted for him, because it was just a tiny little fluff. It wasn't even like he really ballsed it. Just a teensy tiny little fluff, and suddenly he's 11th. And I felt bad for him, because I would have loved to have seen both of them make it into Q3. That's not to take anything away from Gasly. He did a fantastic job. He was phenomenal all weekend.
Yeah.
And also, I want to give a shout out to the team, because I saw quite a few people say the same thing again on Twitter, which was, there was a girl who said it in a particular way that sort of comes to mind now, which was credit to the driver, not the car. And I was like, you can't credit one and not the other. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, a guy can drive a car really well, but the car still has to be physically capable of delivering that performance.
Yeah, you can't push it above a certain envelope if the envelope isn't there to be pushed to. Yeah.
Exactly. So whatever he did because the car allowed him to do it.
Yeah.
As well as his natural talent. And I want to say just how much my heart sang about their whole weekend. We'll get onto the race in a little bit, of course, but I was just delighted for them, because Australia, we said at the time, we didn't think was representative of their actual performance.
No.
But what a turnaround! And what they said was that it was a new aero package that they brought, and they said they were expecting to gain a tenth. And well, they've gained a bit more than that.
Yeah.
And of course, like, not every track is Bahrain, so performance will be variable. But you have to say, like, that's an encouraging result, is it not? To basically have both cars in Q3. I'm saying basically because for me, Hartley was as good as in Q3. It was a brief blip that robbed him of it. And of course, that, you know, moving down the grid, which feels a funny thing to say in this team's case, it must have been a bitter pill to swallow for McLaren in a long line of bitter pills, a banquet of bitter pills that they've been.
Their quali pace was bizarre because in practice they had been top 10 material, and then again in quali it just doesn't quite come together. Now, whether they've gone for a car that is more comfortable or drivable over a race distance as opposed to maybe potentially what we were saying beforehand, where the Haas seems to be really good to put to the limit over one lap, maybe slightly less so over a race pace. Who knows? But that was shocking. And Zach Brown pretty much said as much Saturday night. Even on the grid on the Sunday.
There was an emergency meeting, wasn't there?
Yeah. Because they was like, how the hell did that happen?
Because that's resulted, of course, in Eric Bouillard basically being removed from having sole control of race operations, and Zach has taken over direct control.
Excellent.
I agree with you because I quite like Zach Brown, to be honest with you, but at the same time, is that what McLaren needs?
No.
Another significant structural change?
No, it doesn't. It has to be seen to do something, though, in a way, because of the gaps and so on and so forth that are there. But it doesn't strike me as the right one. But then I'm also quite nonplussed with Eric Boulier in general, because I can't think of the last good thing he's done for quite some time.
No! I thought I was going to crash totally out there, but I didn't. I tell you what, the track conditions are getting really bad.
I keep getting excited because when you come out of the hairpin, there's like a flash of sunshine, but it's such a brief flash of sunshine.
It's not going to dry this session, is it?
No.
What position are you in, Chief?
13th.
I am a mere 7th. And I did that with a balls to the wall kamikaze lap that ruined my tyres. Not going well thus far.
No. Very McLaren.
Back to quali.
Yeah,
back to quali though. They had an emergency meeting after the qualifying session, and presumably this is when the decision was made that Zach was going to assume direct control. It's led to some strange statements as well, because McLaren maintained all the way through the weekend that neither driver has a problem with the car. Like, they're not reporting any particular issue that's affecting performance. They say the car feels good. So it's bullshit, isn't it? There must be something. I'm sure the cars handle very well, but there is some deficit.
There has to be, because and especially if Honda was that poor beforehand, you build a car that works really, really well to that chassis, to how fast that can go. If you're then doing a step up, quote unquote, to a Renault engine or even a Ferrari or a Mercedes engine, does that then require at a base level a change of your car and the way how you go about things, because you're optimizing things for a different speed package? I don't know the answer to that, but to me it kind of makes me think, you're leaving quite a lot on the table. Because how much of a gap is there between Red Bull and McLaren? That is over a second.
Yes, it is. It's definitely over a second, and of course that's the benchmark they're aiming for. It's a target they set themselves, but as you and I said in our Australia episode, it's the obvious target, but it's an unrealistic one.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're gonna close that gap. So maybe they shouldn't be quite so hard on themselves. It's funny actually because Alonso made a statement to the press saying, "Well, I'm confused as to why fans thought we were going to have a successful season and turn everything around." And my immediate thought was, "Well, because you told them to."
Yep.
But I don't disagree with anything he says in particular. It's just he should have been saying it 3 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, of course, year on year, when the formula hasn't changed, I mean, all this hinged on the McLaren having the best chassis, and I think we can be finally disabused of that notion because it just isn't true.
Yeah.
Because if it was the best chassis, then they should at least be competitive versus the Red Bull, and they're not.
Mm-hmm. Who you'd argue has potentially the best chassis if they could actually have the car on the track to show it.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel comfortable saying they possibly have the best chassis. Maybe I don't know. It is really hard between the top three to say what part of their position comes from which element of the engineering in the team, but because there's a lot of talk now saying or claiming that Ferrari are equal on power with Mercedes in the power unit, and I don't believe that for a second.
No.
I think the issue is that Mercedes has a lot more power, but it comes with a significant effect on long-term reliability.
Yeah. Well, in the chat, Ivan has just put McLaren talk way too much.
Yes, they do. Or maybe he's talking about us talking about McLaren way too much, which we do.
Well, we do
it's a
as
comedy
well.
goldmine.
It is.
But to answer your question from before, yeah, once you change engine, I mean, it defines the whole rear of the car in terms of the aero, right? Because this is what Honda's defence has been since they teamed up with Toro Rosso, saying, well, we told McLaren that these reliability problems were going to be there, and we needed to improve reliability and performance. We needed to make the engine slightly longer, but they wouldn't let us do it because it compromised their aero concept. And the good thing about Toro Rosso is they're trying to build a foundation for Red Bull.
Yeah.
So Toro Rosso is like a dummy run, and they basically said, do whatever you need to do to get the engine competitive. And, well, it seems to be coming together. And this is exactly what I feared would happen. Oh, I hate that corner. That McLaren would do a lot of foundational work with Honda for another team to reap the benefits.
Yeah.
And that's partly what seems to have happened. But, I mean, credit to Toro Rosso as well, because they've sent all their staff on a cultural course to learn how to work alongside Japanese colleagues. And they've taken a very open-door approach, basically allowing Honda to lead.
Which is good.
I can hear the robot lady talking.
I can. I think I've not turned her up enough. I'll have a look once my lap's over.
I don't think I'm
which
going
it
to
is now because I've just gone off at Spoon. I'm 15th. I'm 15th. No one do anything. Oh, sorry, Palmer.
5th.
I'm terrible in inters with a dry setup. I've never been able to pull off a decent time. But hopefully, I think no one else is going to improve.
Only Palmer or Stroll could knock you out, so I think you're safe.
Well, I've just knocked Palmer off the road, so that's one dealt with.
I saw that, you cheeky rascal.
I didn't mean to. I didn't actually think he was there anymore.
What's going on with Stroll?
Okay.
Oh, Stroll's coming to the pits.
Yay, 15th, I'm through. Ivan at Arsenal, Red Bull have the best chassis, very clear. Mercedes engine isn't just the best of overall power, it's ahead in energy recovery and deployment and hybrid solutions of turbo too.
I think that is a very astute and
much better assessment than we could do.
Yeah, we should fire one of us and get you on.
Exactly. How Red Bull of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very much true, and it just seems to me that either Mercedes are reining in their use of the so-called party mode because they're trying to avoid it becoming a factor in FIA rulemaking,
Yep.
or they are being somewhat restrained by the 3 engines in the season limitation. What's the weather doing?
Staying where?
Staying wet, of course it is.
Well,
Does the track dry out really over time? It's not really. Doesn't seem to be. I felt like the track was getting worse, to be honest. But not full wet.
No,
so I don't know. But finally, other people are agreeing though, because I got a lot of shit for saying McLaren should have stayed with Honda. But I saw the other day that someone at Autosport was commenting on it, and Andrew Benson, who I've come to really love Andrew Benson, just because he pisses off a lot of people on the internet and doesn't care.
Manor should have bought McLaren GPS system. They then could have claimed they have the best chassis.
Manor? Retro. Yeah. I need to. I think I follow Andrew Benson on Twitter actually. But yeah, I think we've both kind of agreed that they've done all the donkey work for Honda, and someone else will reap the rewards.
It's not just that; it's 100 million a season.
Yeah, and they're not getting 100 million from a flip-flop company, no matter how amazing that is to sponsor the Halo with a flip-flop company.
Yeah, Force India picked up one of those as well, didn't they, for Australia, a flip-flop sponsor? Who, again, props, they continue to just hoover up sponsors, so good work over there. Yeah, I mean, he was saying that, given that they are
McLaren
being outperformed...
should have put the Honda engine in Sauber first before switching.
That deal very nearly happened. I believe.
Yes.
There was talk of Sauber Honda. Actually, yeah, it came to pass, didn't it?
They signed it, and then it was done. It was the very first thing in the first hour that
Frederick Vasseur
got rid of.
No, but I mean the idea of Honda of Sauber being the testbed for Honda.
Yeah.
Rather than being a second team added later, there was talk of Sauber taking the risk with Honda on McLaren's behalf. But I don't know, the whole thing just has a sort of tragicomedy thing about it. I mean, we don't want to say that they are being outperformed by Toro Rosso based on one race, of course, but the performance differential in any case is not exactly a vast chasm, and given that they've lost 100 million investment per year, plus they're now paying God knows how many million for the Renault engines. I believe it's like, is it 35 a season?
Something like that, yeah.
35, 40 million a season they're paying for Renault customer units. And I keep repeating myself, but this to me is a Williams spiral. Once you are out of the works ecosystem, it's very hard to get back in. And I'm not one of those hashtag believe in McLaren people. I think, honestly, this is a team that's in its... I'm not going to say death throes, because they're very rich, but it's a team that is not in the ascendancy and probably won't be for quite some time, if ever. Because every year that they have problems like this, they become a harder and harder sell to sponsors. They become a harder and harder sell in terms of like a prestigious brand tie-up or whatever. And as we saw with Williams, they went from being a team that dominated the 90s to being
last
untouchable.
on the grid. Yeah, well, to being last on the grid today or this week. Last race, that's the one.
Yeah,
with Stroll on the back row, they had that kind of little mini peak in 2014 with new sponsors and a little bit of resurgence. But look at that. It's a team that still rests on its laurels from before. It's not going anywhere. It's treading water and going backwards. if there's a team that's I'm worried about being potentially in a death throes, that looks like being the one. If it's not Haas at the minute, and God knows what they're doing with that car. That car looks bloody awful. And I know they've not got the best driving pairing, but it shouldn't be that bad.
No, but to be honest, like aesthetically, I liked the look of the car. I thought it was a nice, aggressive package.
Yeah. I don't know if they've just got a correlation problem or something, or if it's just so radical that they just don't know what to do with it because they're so set in how they do things there. I don't know.
But I mean, that's the real indictment, though, isn't it? Because they've not been so bad the last few years, but they've basically just been repackaging 2014's car over and over again.
Yep.
And you and I were always criticising them for being too scared to change.
Yep.
And it meant their advantage got smaller and smaller, and the disadvantages got bigger and bigger because they caught some other teams napping in 2014 by having that really slippery car that was great on low downforce circuits.
Yeah.
And then they stuck with that concept but didn't really evolve it effectively. And they did need to take this this major departure from their existing design philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that had to happen.
Yeah.
But the fact that they've not been able to produce anything remotely competitive when doing that is terrifying to me. Because it's not like they've staffed the team with stupid people.
No, because you'd think Paddy Lowe would be able to bring things through. But I've said really poorly, and I need to rephrase, is because they've had that design philosophy for X amount of years, and they've lost their way, and they don't really know. They're still trying to point themselves in the right direction. Is it actually that it's a cultural problem where they just don't... It's taking a while to kind of rebirth that kind of way of working across the board in Williams, as opposed to, like, let's maximise our opportunities across X amount of races and blah, 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 blah. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, you are. I think you're right. There is a cultural problem, but I don't know if they're actually addressing it. Like, part of me gets what you're saying and thinks, well, Paddy Lowe's not been there a huge amount of time. Rob Smedley's been in a new role. Maybe they are finally waking up to the realities of modern F1, changing the management structure, not having a top-down, name-over-the-door approach, but transitioning into a more dynamic structure. But at the same time, I don't know if I believe that assessment when I make it, because it just sort of seems like they don't know what they're doing. It's like I don't have... Well, with other teams that are performing badly, I can look at them and say, well, maybe they'll find a bit of performance as the season goes on. A development here, a development there. Like, the base package is not truly, truly awful.
Yeah.
But there's nothing redeeming about that Williams. Like even like the really bad Saubers we've had the last few years had some redeeming qualities. Usually they were quite easy on their tyres. Which you think, okay, that's not necessarily going to win you a race, and it didn't. But it's still a quality. It's a good characteristic of the car that you can build upon. It's good to have it in the pocket. But there's nothing about that Williams that seems good. It seems to be bad on its tyres. It's bad on corner entry. It's bad on the apex. It's bad on corner exit. They are struggling to get the proper performance out of the engine. To the point that there was some concern over maybe they had defective Mercedes units. I don't know if you read that, but
yeah.
And Mercedes, of course, say no. All our customers receive the same power units, same software, same ECU. So there's something about how they've packaged it. That's the problem, and you think that is a fundamental problem. They build their own gearboxes. I wonder if their gearbox is garbage as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a standard for other series, but then I suppose if you're the only provider, then you just kind of build it to spec, and that's that. Chimpy has popped into the chat, which I'm really sorry, seems to be having a bit of a weird I won't speak, I will speak on my phone. I'll sort that out if I can. Actually, is it that Paddy Lowe's the problem because his cars don't seem to work rail round others, and that's a midfield team?
That's actually an interesting point. It could be. I mean, also, it's hard to know how much of Paddy Lowe's reputation is truly warranted, because I was one of the people who said that really he coasted on the work Ross Brawn did at Mercedes. And then everyone sort of said the same thing when he left Mercedes, which was that he's going before he's pushed. And then you think, well, there must be a reason they would want to push him. So maybe he wasn't actually all he was cracked up to be. Again, I kind of reluctant to make an assessment like that, but could be the case.
Who knows?
Right, back onto qualifying. Should we talk Haas?
Yeah.
And again, we're going in a random order here. We're not. Bit of a dodgy run for Grosjean, I felt. He looked uncomfortable all weekend. Never really had the pace of his teammate, did he?
No, and I was
saw him with
really
brake problems again.
Really concerned that he was a Q1 exiter, and I'm glad that K-Mag's kind of kept up the spirit so much, or so to speak, because otherwise then suddenly Haas would have looked like a real flash in the pan for an entire Grand Prix. Thankfully it wasn't the case, and it was more of Grosjean just having a bit of a wet lettuce moment. But didn't look comfortable at all. And Bahrain is much more of big stops. Mind you, well, Australia is as well, to be fair. So I'd have thought a brake problem would have shown up there as much as Bahrain. But hopefully Grosjean will calm it back down again, because now that Haas have a car that can be at the top of that midfield, and that midfield battle is so close, his excuses can only last for a little while before actually suddenly K-Mag's on a roll. Who's going to end up being the driver that they love more?
I honestly think K-Mags has made a home for himself there. They seem to really like him, and he's delivering. He had a great end to last year, I thought, in a car that I didn't rate very highly at all.
Yeah, he came on, didn't he, over the course of the season?
Yeah, and he's been fantastic since this season began. He's just been on it. And part of me is thinking that it's probably time to clear Grosjean out. And it's not that I have stopped rating Grosjean, because that really isn't the case. But I think for both parties, it's going to become beneficial now for him to move somewhere else. Whether there's somewhere for him to go, I don't know. But it's not doing his career any good. And I don't have the confidence in him to turn it around, because it seems to be some sort of inherent problem to the way that car is being produced, that it's persisted now for almost his entire career there. And it just, they've tried changing brakes, they've tried running mixed sets of brakes, they've tried tweaking his setup. There's just something that means either he's really on it, or more often than not, he's just nowhere. And if K-Mags can continue to perform at the level he's performing at with consistency, then it's going to make Grosjean look worse and worse and worse and worse. And I can see Haas turning on him, to be honest.
He just needs to watch how as I go into the barrier. But I'm still good. I'm out of quali, but at least I'm not in the wall too much.
I'm having a dismal quali session. I'm not happy with the balance of the car at all. I'm sixth, but
okay, at least
I feel like I could be so much faster, but every lap something goes wrong. I'm having a Brendan Hartley Q3 moment. Every lap, just like a tiny brush with some blade of grass and losing 3/10.
So just to update on the chat there, Ivan Arsenal says, it's not fair, look at what Lowe did at McLaren. And Chimpy said, is it just the car is anti-Grosjean? But then those brakes have been anti-Grosjean for years, so you'd work around it eventually, is my opinion on that. And yes, Paddy Lowe did do some good work at McLaren. But as I guess Formula One's a very, very cruel sport in that what you did a few years ago doesn't necessarily always translate to what works well in today's formula, I guess.
No, I was about to say the same thing. I was about to say the exact same thing, that it was a different time, a different formula.
Our old chum Ron Denny.
Big Ronnie D.
Ronnie D, the big D.
So yeah, and again, I'm not quick to criticise usually in Formula One, because I know how the sport is, and I know it is difficult to get into, and it's difficult to stay at the top once you're there.
Yeah.
But he has to take responsibility for this car.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big news point pre-season. This was the first car that he was actually responsible for at Williams, and it's a dog. And so it does bring into question his previous years, just like you and I were talking about 2 episodes ago about Kimi, where was he ever really back on it? Because we always look at his Lotus years, but given the circumstances at the time, was that really reflective?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't like criticising him, but it's just that car is dire. It's absolutely dire. Speaking of dire cars, let's talk Force India. It seemed to be improved for this Grand Prix, but still nowhere near where they want it to be. And of course, that comes down in part to the fact the midfield is so tight, which I have to say is making me enjoy this season immensely.
Yes. Yeah.
What I'd really like is for the top 3 teams to be disqualified, and then you'd have some real racing on your hands. Agreed.
It's almost like Formula One and then Formula 1B. I find.
It is.
And it's interesting because Force India do need to sort out what they've got car-wise and everything for the future, and it looks like a rough diamond. When I saw the car out there, not that we saw tons of it, because again it was only really Ocon in massive battles that was going for it in the race, but it didn't. It looked a little bit more stable, but it just looks slow, and I can't really describe why. It's a middle of everything and a master of now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a team that I could see turning things around. It's just it makes me a bit sad, really, that they seem to have gone off into the long grass a little bit. But I'm sure they'll come back.
Chimpy says that
they were saying. Sorry, go on.
As I say, Chimps Pop in the chat, he thinks Force India might end up finishing this season 9th. And Ivan says, I think we'll all get a nasty surprise when Mercedes turn up and dominate this weekend.
Oh yeah. I was going to say I'm picking Hamilton for the win, actually.
Yeah.
So we're on the same page there, mate. Force India could end up finishing 9th. I wouldn't put money on it, simply because I trust them more than Sauber to develop through the year, because I think Sauber are still finding their feet.
Yeah, and Haas to be fair. Yeah.
But it's just sad. And you said what I was going to say and what Paul Di Resta actually said on Sky Sports during the practice session, which Crofty asked him what's actually wrong with the Force India, and he said, I don't know, because I haven't seen enough of it on track. And that's exactly how we felt talking about it in Australia, that it was just so anonymous that you didn't get to really see where it was struggling. I'm trying to back off here without falling into the clutches of the car behind.
There was a problem as well, I found, with Force India, where they just seem to be a bit track time shy, I find as well. Like, they find excuses to not run. And especially if you've got a car with a new package, I don't care if it's snowing outside. You get it out there, you'll find something out. Even if it's well, that didn't go well there, you now know that didn't go well. get the car
there's
out on
definitely
track.
value.
Yeah.
There is inherent value to running. But let's play devil's advocate for a minute. Let's say that things don't improve. And don't worry, everyone, a race review is coming, but it comes during the race. Now, things don't improve. What's going to happen with Perez and Ocon? Because this is not a car worthy of their talents.
No.
And given the driver market for next year is so shaken up, and Perez is on a one-season deal,
Yeah.
what does that boy have to do to get a top ride?
Well,
Because he's been amazing the last few years.
Yeah, this is the perfect year for him in terms of driver contracting, not only just because of what everything else is going on around the track, but he has become the master of, I'll do a 1-year deal. I'll do a 1-year deal. In the hopes of either Force India do go up the chain, or they drop down and he can use that as a bargaining chip to get out elsewhere, and be so long, but actually come out of that by Force India, I'm not with you through the bad times, really well because of how well he's played the game for that long term anyway. Ocon's a more interesting
he's
choice.
done enough for that team, to be honest.
Exactly. Ocon's an interesting choice because he will pick up Bottas's broken pieces, I think, so long as he sticks with Perez. Whereas Perez, I kind of feel, is a bit stuck. In the same way how this is a big year for Ricciardo, Perez is almost now not in control of his fate because we're having to wait on Raikkonen to go. Where does Daniel Ricciardo then go? Who then takes that place? Is it a Red Bull driver that goes to Red Bull? If he goes to Ferrari, if he stays at Red Bull, then does Perez go to Ferrari? Especially if Leclerc is still finding his feet after 1 year, which is probably the case. And you kind of think, again, you're not in control of your destiny, no matter how good you are.
No, I mean, the weird thing is I could actually see him ending up at Haas.
Oh no, that doesn't make... Unless they become like the Americas team and they just like build a wall between the pit garages.
Indulge me for a second, right? Let's just assume that Haas stay in the running about where they are now.
Yeah.
If he was going to go somewhere else, although he's deserving of a top ride, I don't think he'd get one. And I could see Grosjean being dropped. And he just strikes me as a Haas driver because, you know, that's what they've been looking for, right? They've not been in a rush to take young drivers. They don't seem to be very interested in young drivers, to be honest.
No.
What they want is someone with experience who can get points, and Grosjean doesn't seem to be that guy anymore. That I just think it's a marriage of convenience. I don't think it's ideal for either party, but
no. That's an interesting
you see what
point.
I mean?
Yeah, interesting point that Ivan raises in the chat. Mercedes dropped the ball with Verline. So we have kind of mixed opinions on Verline, and as to whether or not he will come back and make the grade or do whatever. Again, is that another Perez gets in the way? Do a Ferrari drop the ball with Haas not taking in second drivers, that kind of stuff? I agree with you that I don't think they're interested in any young drivers, but then they don't seem to be interested in American ones, and then they don't seem to have an identity. No,
I mean, what they're interested in is guys who can get the best out of the car in the short term and help develop it, which is arguably a good strategy. But it's not a strategy for the long term. But again, you and I have our feelings that they're not in it for the long term anyway. So
no. I like your theory of they'll just become a massive contract for Formula One teams to have parts in, and then they'll disappear.
I
like that.
I mean, I don't know. The driver market is proving to be incredibly interesting because Red Bull are saying, well, if Ricciardo leaves, we're spoiled for choice for a replacement. But no. And what I'd be interested to see is, let's say he does go, who gets that seat, Gasly or Sainz?
Yeah, yeah, and that is a
Because it's
massive
only-
dichotomy, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
it's whose career are you going to ruin first? in a weird way, because would Gasly, and it would be interesting if Sainz comes back. We know that he's the equal for Verstappen, and that's been quite clear, no matter how much the press want to say otherwise. Gasly was nearly dropped from the Red Bull program before he went and won GP2 and got his act together, and now seems to be on a cresty roll. I don't see Hartley being in the Red Bull driver development program for a long time. I think he'll enjoy this season whilst it lasts, and then we'll see no hide no higher of him, probably, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and if they take someone that is not Sainz or Gasly, it undermines their entire driver program. They can't do what they did with Webber and Coulthard and just go, hey, we've got some experienced people whilst we build up our driver program, because it exists now. I mean, to be fair, it did exist when Webber and Coulthard were their drivers back in the day, because the very first Red Bull driver was Enrique Bernaldi in F1.
He was, yeah. He had Red Bull backing at Arrows, didn't he?
Yep. He was their first F1 Red Bull driver. So if you go back to 2001, yes, they can stick any old people in the car, but it undermines so much of what they put in.
I think they'll definitely recruit from within. It's just that Sainz Gasly problem, because whoever they put at Toro Rosso, that's their career bottlenecked, and if they put Sainz there, it's his career over.
Yeah.
Because that'll trigger the extension in his contract, and it means again he can't escape, because if they don't take him back this year, he's allowed to transfer permanently to Renault.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the terms of the arrangement.
Nice.
So he's like, basically Red Bull have first refusal for him for next year, and if they don't take him on, then he's free to negotiate.
Yeah, just to read out on the chat, apologies, it's freaking out a bit. So Ivan says, you've got to give props to Haas though, for they could have easily gone the route of pay drivers like Stroll, although Stroll is a talented pay driver, although he's not really shown it. And he's also put, ever the astute, Mr. Ivan. Gasly is very good. He struggled in GP2 because of the tyres when they were narrower. Now in F1, the bigger tyres help him, just like they help Hulkenberg.
Again, that is a very astute observation.
Because Hulkenberg was trounced by Perez when it was more about tyre preservation. Now it's more about, let's get big, bold bollocks. I think he's come of age again, Hulkenberg.
I've had a fondness for Hulkenberg for a very long time. I really want to see his Renault tenure go well. Shall we touch on them? We've only got a minute 18 left before we have to get into the race. So
yeah, we've proper chatted around every kind of thing ever. So apologies in the chat, but it's been informative and interesting.
What did you make of Renault's qualifying performance? And then we'll talk about the top teams and Sauber.
Yeah, Hulkenberg loves the seventh, so that continues. Sainz, by his own admission, said that he just had a really shockingly awkward weekend whilst he struggles to get up to confidence with this year's car. But yeah, again, okay, but they're a qualifying team, not a race team at the minute. That's where their strengths kind of lie a little bit.
It's funny to see that play out, isn't it? Because again, that's something we've been talking about before, where I said, in my opinion, Haas is a quality team more than a race team. Sauber are more of a race team than a quality team, and it does seem to be bearing out. Because we'll touch on Sauber now. Marcus Ericsson out-qualifies Charles Leclerc for the second time.
Yes.
A bit of a bumpy start for old Charles. I rate him very, very highly, incredibly highly, but as we know, I rate no one higher than the Merrickson.
We love a bit of Merrickson on this podcast. We've been long-term fans of the Merrickson for quite a while, and he is the giant slayer, because if you can't trounce him, he's been given so much crap over the years that it then ends your career if you just equal him. So it's. I hope
that's what
that
killed
it's.
their line off.
I think so. Yeah.
It's this. They had the smallest qualifying differential, right? And yeah, their line beat him, but the points differential was aided somewhat by a lot of bad luck on Marcus's part.
Yep.
But the qualifying differential was so tiny, and at that point you have to think, well, given what
who's
it
the
costs,
star? Yeah.
Who's actually bringing the value to the team? That's why we love him though. He gets on with it, doesn't he? He's just quiet, gets on with it.
Big arms.
The gun show, and he does seem to be a bit of a giant killer, or a giant equaler.
Yes,
and he's certainly got off onto the right foot with this Alpha Sauber partnership. He seems to be popular within the team, but also he just seems to be engaged somewhat.
Yeah. I think
I saw him do a. Sorry, I was going to say I saw him do a hot lap for Codemasters.
Yes.
And I don't know. I've never seen him do much PR work before, but it seems like he's becoming a presence now that people don't just laugh at.
Well, I hope so. He's become my replacement, Adrian Sutil.
Yes, he is. As I described him last year, he is the Pedro Diniz of the 21st century.
Yes, I love that. So Ivan's going on a rant about Lance Stroll, interestingly, saying that he's not talented at all. He was the only person in F3 who had driver parts made by an F1 team. It's going right off on a rant. Okay, he is a fraud. I think. Chimpion Ericsson. I think his talent will show next season. Leclerc, as there'll be more sponsorship money and upgrades and a better car. I don't necessarily disagree. I think the problem with Charles Leclerc at the moment is he's overdriving the car, and he was saying in a post-race interview that he kind of came in having won everything and was like, now I've got to get used to knowing that 18th might be all that I can get. And then as soon as there's been a sniff of something, it's like he's gone, cool, let's go for it. Turn it up to 11, and then the tyres don't like that, and then off he goes. So he just needs to chill a little bit. I can see him going a little bit like how Stoffel Van Dorn was last year, where the opening few races were shocking because he was overdriving and overthinking. And then when you have that kind of epiphany moment where you're like, oh, you drive the car like this, I think he'll be off and away.
I'm between the two of you because let's not pretend that Stroll doesn't have some advantages other drivers do not, but I still don't think he's truly awful. And I think he's got more to give. I don't have confidence in him to deliver it.
No. And I do wonder with Williams, if you think that he was out-qualified by Massa at about 6/10 per race each lap, where would that Williams be now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the interesting thing is that it seems that relationship is souring on both sides, because Stroll's quite critical of the team.
Yeah.
And we saw on the race broadcast the other day, Big Papa Stroll looking very unhappy
He's a bit
in the back of the garage. I don't think that relationship will last much longer.
No.
But then again, I don't know where else he'd go.
Home.
Well, no, because his dad clearly wants him in Formula One, right? And he's going to get the checkbook out. And I'm just wondering who he's going to replace. I'm just wondering who he's going to replace somewhere else. Who's he going to push out?
Well, that could be an interesting Force India driver with the team with the lowest budget. Should Perez move to Haas to replace a miserable Frenchie?
I mean, because I don't know. It's shaping up to be a very interesting year in terms of driver movement, anyway, right? Because Mercedes, are they really going to give it to Ocon so early, or will they snatch a more experienced driver to challenge Lewis?
It can't be Bottas, surely. Please, not Bottas.
Oh no, I don't think they'll retain Bottas. I think his death certificate's already signed.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's already gone in my mind. I'm pretty sure they've already made the decision internally. But then you've got the situation at Ferrari as well, where it's looking increasingly. We keep saying this every year, and he's still here, but Kimi's got to be going soon. Yeah. So then there's a Ferrari seat available, and I don't think Leclerc is ready to take it on.
No.
But then apparently the obvious choice being Ricciardo, Vettel has got a contractual clause that bans them from signing him, which seems a very odd thing to put into your contract. So then, does that open the door for Perez?
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Then, of course, maybe there's a seat at Renault, depending on if Ricciardo leaves. Who gets the Red Bull seat?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of doors opening. So it's not like Stroll doesn't have any options to take his money somewhere else. But I don't know. My patience with him is running out. He needs to improve over the year, or else, he's had his chance. Yeah. Formula One is harsh.
As I think this race is going to prove for us, potentially.
Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have an accident. The AI are a bit odd around here. But yeah, back on topic with Sauber. Leclerc still finding his feet, making the odd mistake, but you would expect that from a rookie. Still rating very, very highly. But I'm also finding that I rate the car. Obviously, it's not a race-winning piece of machinery, but they've definitely taken a big step. I think it shows that all along they've had talent within the company. They've just probably not had the budget available to them to do some of the more interesting developmental.
Or a Manisha that actually understands how to run an F1 team rather than cook the books from a lawyer's perspective, because quite what she brought to the team in terms of a F1 team structure perspective, admittedly it's taken investment, but Fred Vasseur has gone in and knocked together a tightly knit team that has spent the back end of last year as well as this year reclosing that gap time-wise back up again. And I'd imagine, maybe apart from Haas, that would be the team that has probably gained the most pole time delta.
Yeah, quite possibly. I'm also finding that I like how the car looks more and more. I know some people were critical of it. I actually wasn't watching the race alone this weekend, and Leclerc span, and even people who are not regular fans say that's a good looking car. Just as a throwaway comment, and the word I'm hearing quite often is elegant, and that's a good. I think that's a good description of that car, like the livery. I mean,
yeah,
elegant. It's not aggressive. It's not stylish. It's just elegant. Oh, I'm in the middle of a sandwich again. This is going to be a huge
Kvyat's
accident.
going to Russian you. Yep.
He span. He span into Massa. What a fool! But that was me he was going to take out. I nearly took you out there.
I know. Ooh, virtual safety car.
Oh, I hate the virtual safety car. I didn't know they put simulations of the torpedo moves into the game.
That was a proper Kvyat moment. I feel so proud. That's the best AI that I've seen all year.
Do you know, though, that would have been my race over, I think.
Yeah,
I was 50-50 about... It was 50-50 for me about whether I should have braked or not, and I thought, no, chicken out. It's better to actually finish the race when you're doing a live podcast than it is to do
Turn
well.
one it, yeah.
Did your deltas disappear during that virtual safety car?
For a little while.
Go as fast as you want for me.
Ooh, Massa.
It is a bit brown trousers, isn't it, around the AI?
Yeah, once
Especially
again, though, in
these
Japan,
corners.
we're together.
It's the same every year. This is the only track where we ever see each other.
Oh, Alonso's on hard tyres. That's why we're going to have a bottleneck.
Ooh, that was a ballsy ballsy move. I tried to follow you through, but it was it was too tight.
Said the actress to the bishop.
Ooh.
Okay. Oh, Hulkenberg's on mediums as well.
Some interesting mixed strategy going on.
Yeah. So they're clearly one-stopping, so we need to leapfrog these and get ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to be stuck in traffic for a bit, I think.
Which is quite interesting. If there's tyre strategy going on in this race, that actually, for me, one of the most interesting points about the Bahrain race was tyre strategy going on there, which I found fascinating. How about you?
Yeah, me too, actually. I mean, that was part of what happened from Ericsson, right?
Yep.
That he was able to one-stop it. Good lad. But this is what Pirelli have been tasked with bringing into the sport, right? And it seems they've finally managed to do it. I mean, whether we still have pit stops a year from now, who knows? Which we'll get onto in the race review.
Yeah.
But yeah,
which we should really start. To be fair.
Yes, we should. But let's talk qualifying really quickly then. Let's finish the top runners. Mercedes Ferrari battle up at the front. Any surprises?
Not really, no.
No.
I'm pleased to see
Lewis,
that Kimi is still there and thereabouts. Yeah, Lewis is was a bit strange that he was not at the top of that, I guess. I just assumed he would be.
Yeah, me too, actually. I expected more from him, but he just didn't deliver, did he?
No, and I wonder if that was because he felt, meh, penalty, I'm going to be a miserable moose. Because you know how totes emotion is.
Well, to be honest, I should have predicted this, because he always, whenever he sulks at the end of the previous race, he's always in his own head too much.
Yeah.
Oh, what's going on with my steering?
Uh-oh.
The car won't turn.
Are you in a barrier?
No. But like, like the turning ratio of the car, what the hell am I talking about? Turning circle of the car is now like massive for some reason.
Oh.
It's coming back to me now, but I lost a lot of time there to you, and I've dropped back behind Massa. It's all right. I'll pick it up. I just need to be a bit more aggressive now. Now the field is spreading out a little bit. But also, Alonso knocked my end plate, and that's causing me to lose quite a lot of speed.
Nando's.
I know. In fact, I'm actually going to tell them to change my wing because it's bothering me. Anyway, yeah, race review. That's what we're here to do. Let's review the race. Would you like to kick us off? Shall we talk back to front, front to back?
Let's go front to back because we've not spent too long on the front of the field. And for me, I'd like to ask your opinion. Did you think Mercedes with Bottas through that pulled the best strategy with the worst driver?
Yes, they did, didn't they? Let's be honest. But I mean, it was a great finish.
Yeah.
Although I'll be honest, like I say it was a great finish and a bit tense, but I'm not entirely sure it was, because I don't think in my heart I actually credited Bottas with the ability to get past. I expected more that maybe Vettel's tyre would explode or he'd make a mistake.
Yeah, because those Ferrari tyres have loved to do an explosion in past races. So I completely agree with you. I expected more of that than Bottas actually being able to overtake. And I think that says more about Bottas than it does for anything else.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it from that angle, but that is a damning indictment if ever there was one. Like, you think it's far more likely that the hammer of Thor will tumble down from the heavens and send Vettel wide than it is for Bottas to put the overtake on him.
Yeah. He just seems so passive and so for the whole thing. The thing
is, like, I've rated Bottas for quite some time as well. Like when was doing his thing at Williams, I thought he's going to come good one day. I saw him as kind of a Mika Hakkinen in the making, but how wrong was I? Because he's not made much of his big chance, has he?
Not really. And especially when it's coming off the back of a good end to last season, I was really, really hoping that he would then come in all guns blazing, not into the barriers this year, and it's just not happened. And it's so interesting that when you talk to people about who they think are challenging for race wins and who's going to be battling for the championship, no one's even thinking about Bottas. It's all about Vettel, and then what will the Red Bulls do? And then occasionally someone's like, "Oh, Kimi's not fallen asleep yet," but like no one has mentioned Bottas at all.
No, I don't really. I can't put my finger on what's wrong, but he just hasn't seemed. He hasn't seemed to fit with the car or the team very well since he arrived, and there was something awkward from the moment he sat in that car for the very first time. I found it makes me sad that Rosberg retired. Here's an interesting question for you though, because we had a conversation very similar when Ricciardo was going to Red Bull.
Yeah.
And you and I were saying, well, it's a risky move in some sense. I mean, it's a logical one for Ricciardo, but is he just going there to be monstered by Vettel? Now, with Bottas, it's different because he had a choice, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's a hypothetical. Because, going to Mercedes to team with Lewis was always going to be a risky career move. Because even if you are coming second to Lewis all the time, you're still forever going to be his Rubens Barrichello, and that's not good for your own career. It means that no other team will see you as a number one driver. So, had he turned down that job and stayed at Williams, do you think we'd be talking about him in different terms, or do you think he'd also be struggling with the developments at Williams the last 2 seasons?
I think he'd be talked about differently, but almost
do you think you'd think less of him if he turned down that opportunity? Because that's kind of like the F1 thing, isn't it? That you're supposed to go for the gap. You're supposed to take the opportunities when they come your way.
I'm not sure. That's an interesting question. I'm going to ponder. Do you have a particular thought of it whilst my brain clocks round?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, right? Is it better to be number one driver at an average midfield team or a number two driver at the World Championship contenders?
Because it reminds me very much of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. In the stick him in a Sauber, stick him in a Jordan, stick him in a whatever, absolutely monstered it. Stick him in a topped car, look at him flounder, and then straight away, as soon as that Williams was not nearly as good again in 1998, he was hassling Villeneuve and doing good again. It's almost like some drivers are better in a midfield situation. I don't know, and I don't know if that's a Bottas thing.
It could very well be. It just strikes me as one of those odd forks in the road that Formula One drivers have to come up to. And I've often thought about what I'd do myself. Would I rather be number one at Force India, where people look at you and go, "Oh, if only you could be in a top car," or would I rather be in a top car but be teamed with a wanker? And just not be allowed to win, because I don't know. There seems to be more respect, like just the way we've spoken this episode about Hülkenberg, as compared to the tone that we use for Bottas. I think is a good demonstration of that. Hülkenberg has our respect, but Bottas doesn't.
And I don't know necessarily if Hülkenberg would do a better job point on point than Bottas.
That's exactly the point I'm making.
But I feel like
I'm
now
curious. I'm curious what chat thinks on this.
Yeah, pop it. Do pop it.
Please chime
your
in,
answers
guys.
into the chat. Because I guess for me, there's a couple of things that's on that. It's how you deal with that kind of rivalry at that top level, and that's why I enjoyed having Rosberg in that team, because yes, probably naturally on talent, Lewis was the better driver, but he didn't give up, and he went away and thought about it. He'd done some cheeky moves, caused some controversy, wouldn't go down without a fight, and I love that kind of mentality. But would you see Bottas sticking it up the inside of Hamilton? Would you have seen Bottas parking it in qualifying at Monaco and going, "No, I just lost control"? It's almost like he's too nobly nice to be at the front.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I use the term. That's why I call him the Rubens Barrichello as well.
Oh,
because because Barrichello showed at Jordan and Stewart that actually he can do it, but he always seemed tame at Ferrari. Whereas the reason I didn't call him Eddie Irvine, Eddie Irvine filled pretty much the same role, but Eddie Irvine was of the mindset that what was his famous quote? He said, "I am the best driver in Formula One apart from Michael Schumacher."
Yeah.
And that was his defence. He was saying, "Look, where else should I be? This is the best car, and I am the best driver apart from him. So this is where I should be." And I always thought that was quite a good outlook. But he had the confidence to carry it off. He had the big personality, and when Schumacher broke his leg, you weren't there thinking, "Oh God, Ferrari's only got one testicle." You trusted Irvine to be able to do the job, whereas if Hamilton, ascended to heaven, as he often thinks he's about to, then would you trust Bottas to lead the team? And I just don't think that you would. I don't think, when Rosberg had a bad day, you sort of thought that, well, he's being psyched out by Lewis. Whereas I don't get that with Bottas. I don't think he is being psyched out by Lewis. I think he's just either complacent or he's just not got the edge to be able to deliver.
Yeah.
A bit toothless. And I don't know if that's fair necessarily, because he wasn't toothless at Williams. Remember those scraps he had with Raikkonen?
Yeah. They seemed inseparable.
I don't really know where it's gone. But anywho, that's quite succinctly dealt with our top two drivers.
It has.
In the Grand Prix. Because, of course, Kimi lost out due to a bungled pit stop. And, of course, all of us sending best wishes to the Ferrari mechanic who, his leg was fucked, I believe is the medical term.
Having seen that now back on slow motion replay, it's not something you'd want to send into You've Been Framed for 500 quid's worth. It looks awful.
No. I don't know if... my understanding was that UK TV didn't repeat it during the broadcast, but German TV was not so noble.
Nope, we did repeat it.
Oh. Because I remember seeing it was Jenny Gao, I think, on Twitter saying, well, it's only right that the TV crews are not repeating it. But then, 10 minutes after she said that, RTL did it. But yeah, I mean, it was a nasty accident, and of course now people are questioning whether pit stops are really necessary, and the FIA want to talk about wheel guns, and just no, really, just no. Anyone who says we need to get rid of pit stops is a dribbling maniac. Pit stops are integral to the experience of the Grand Prix. It's what gives it its chess-like marathon quality.
Exactly.
It's not a sprint race. It's about strategy and it's about speed and talent rather than just speed.
Mm-hmm.
Can you manage your pace? Can you control your tyre and fuel usage effectively. You know, that's really what it's about. What they need to get rid of, what I wouldn't think was a reactionary way to look at it, is the traffic light system, because I do think, even though it's slower, I think you need that human oversight, and I think this accident is one of the several examples we've had down the last few years that proves that. Because you and I were talking before we went live that Ferrari explained that the lights go green when the car detects it's got all 4 wheels attached.
Yeah.
And of course it went green because one of the wheels hadn't been changed, but it hadn't come off either.
Yeah.
I almost got past Verstappen and then touched the grass again, and now I'm like a second behind him. But I am catching you, sir.
I know, I can see. Yeah, so for me... Oh, when are you pitting, by the way?
No idea. How's your tyre wear?
Absolutely horrific. That's why I was like, might pit this lap.
I'm 33, 32 on the rears and 41 on the fronts.
I'm on 66 on my front right.
Yeah, I would come in if I was you. You're going to gain on me anyway, because I've requested a wing change at my pit stop because I want my downforce back. I miss my downforce. Moving on, we're staying with top teams, but not one that finished particularly well, because they didn't finish at all, and that would be our buddy buds at Red Bull.
Yeah.
Daniel Ricciardo, through no fault of his own. Poor wee bugger.
Yeah.
Felt bad for him. But let's talk about Max, which is sorry, Dickhead. Let's talk about Dickhead, which I'm sure we all want to. Obviously, he ran over the front wing of Hamilton and took himself out of the race. For me, just absolutely symbolic of the problem, the criticism I've had about his driving down the years. That I really thought last season he'd shaken himself out of. But again, he's just too aggressive, and to some people that's anathema. They really don't like that attitude that it's possible to be too aggressive in Formula One, but it is. And I know some people will say, well, Senna was aggressive, and it's like, well, yeah, he was, but there was something different about it. That I'm having trouble putting my finger on, but there was something different about Senna's skill level, I suppose. Whereas with Max, it always feels like it's coming from a place of frustration or desperation.
Yeah, and ignorance, I guess. And I guess that ignorance then bears out because you've got someone who is exceptionally young saying blah, 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 blah. And then he uses, well, you're going to blame the young guy, is his response to everything. And I think, well, you can't have it all the ways. It's interesting how the interview...
You had a very fast stop, sir.
Sorry?
You must have had a very fast stop. Because you've got past me really quickly. I was surprised by that.
Aha. I've got traffic though, so I'm going to be buggered. What was I going to say? Oh, if that works, that is a move. That wasn't what I was going to say, but it has worked. Move! Just went around that outside of Ocon on the S's.
Oh, now I'm on it. Now I'm going to do some damage. The car feels fantastic now I've got my wing back.
Yes! Come get me, bro!
Just need Van Dorn to get out of me fucking way. Yeah, I saw him speaking with Dietrich. Not Dietrich, Helmut Marko after the race. Still seems to be Marco's best boy, doesn't he? Didn't seem to be much tension or atmosphere between them. Although the pit wall didn't look particularly happy at his mistake and knew he was head in his hands and whatever else.
Was it that actually caused his retirement? The damage from it?
I think so. I don't know because the stream I was watching it on kept cutting out. But that seemed to be the implication. Maybe chat can correct us if we're wrong. But maybe there was some floor damage or something. I don't know. But he came into the pits and then retired. So I presume there was some related damage. But not the result that team needed, really, was it?
No, not when they were saying, and people were talking up their chances of being potentially actually the fastest car out there, and a win was potentially on the cards. Because when you think that Ferrari may have gone for the tippy toe strategy and Bottas was just being Bottas, you kind of think, that was there for Ricciardo probably to get hold of, and Max weren't too far off, because if you think, well, Hamilton caught back up again on a awkward strategy, then actually what were you all thinking? So yeah, that team needs to do some miniature soul searching, I think, in the fear of reliability, and stop saying that Renault's engines are terrible, because it's not actually the Renault engine that's been the problem these last couple of races.
No, it isn't. I mean, I find myself feeling more sorry for Danny Rick than I do Max. Yeah. Generally, but not just circumstantially in this case, although the circumstances obviously were very different. I don't know. I imagine that there must be a lot of frustrated people over at Red Bull at the moment, because they're doing everything right and still not getting the results. At least, well, I mean, the team is doing everything right and not getting the results, and they sit behind McLaren in the constructors right now, which is insane to me. Next up, Gasly taking P4, very famously. I loved the heartwarming scenes at the end of the race of the Toro Rosso mechanics just going all mental in Italian. I enjoyed that very much. Just an astonishing performance. I really liked how the race developed between him and Magnussen as well. With Haas pitting early, trying to get the undercut, and Toro Rosso responding, and I really enjoyed watching that play out. Because part of me thought that actually Magnussen was going to get past him on pit strategy, but he held his own, and I thought he drove a stellar Grand Prix. He didn't after the pit stop cycle. He didn't really seem to be under much threat. Really great result for the team. I felt awful for them after Australia. I didn't feel Australia was reflective of the effort they put in or their pace.
Nope.
Oh, hello there, the Beetlejuice. Welcome. We were just discussing Toro Rosso and our deep and profound love for them.
Yes, my Minardi through and through. Cause,
that's the thing, isn't it? You always think of them a bit like they're just Minardi, aren't they? Just cheeky rapscallions. Hartley obviously didn't have as good an experience in the race with his penalty coming up, and it just was nowhere near Gasly in terms of pace, but I don't think anybody realistically expected him to be anyway.
No, but there's flashes of pace there, and we saw this flash of pace in testing, and everyone was like, is this real, or is this because Honda used 3 different engines and they turned it up and everyone else was sandbagging? I think this was a nice confirmation of what we saw in Barcelona, as actually there is genuine pace to unlock in that package when things all come together, and that's going to be the beauty of the midfield, is that it's going to be who's got it best right on that weekend. And the lottery of having basically 6 teams, potentially 7 if Williams get onto it, where we just have no freaking clue what order it is. And so I don't necessarily expect we rock up at Shanghai and Gasly will be sitting there going, I got myself another 4th position. It's a yoke. And doing loads and loads of photos with the perfect emoji hand gesture in. You need to, if you've not noticed this, you need to do a shot every time you see Pierre Gasly walking along doing the perfect emoji hand gesture. It's become a thing.
I've got a few chats to catch up with here from the Beetlejuice, pointing out that Toro Rosso aren't really comparable to Minardi because obviously Minardi never had the kind of financial support behind them. You are correct. We were just referencing the fact that Toro Rosso was born of Minardi, that Red Bull bought them. But I agree with you that the glorious legacy of Giancarlo Minardi is indeed glorious.
It is.
God love that man.
Yes.
I'd love to see him back in the sport. I really would, but it's obviously a pipe dream.
I know. I just enjoy his. I don't know what he's saying, but I still watch the YouTube channel where he posts up something in his living room after each race for like 2 minutes of just incomparable Italian. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll give that a like.
He ran for mayor as well, didn't he?
Oh,
in Faenza. What? You're out?
I'm not out, but I've lost my wing.
Oh, now is my time to strike.
There it is. Oh shit! I'm gonna have to go.
Oh, that is a brilliant notion. Put him in Arriva Bene's place at Ferrari.
Oh yes.
Yeah, who doesn't love that idea? That's fantastic. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Something about Arriva Bene, it just... Because it just screams cigarette salesman. he just doesn't seem trustworthy somehow. Whereas good old Giancarlo, you know where you stand with him.
Yeah.
Fresh pasta for lunch.
Best coffee thing in the pit lane, yeah.
Exactly. Moving down, K-Mags was next on the road, as I recall, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I making that up?
No, you're right. Having a proper resurgence, loving it, loving it.
Yeah, I mean, the redemption of Kevin Magnussen, I think, is a great story, given, he was dropped by McLaren, and his time at Renault, I don't think, was truly reflective of his ability. Mm-hmm. So I'm pleased to see him doing well. Everyone knows my feelings on Haas and their business model, but always had a bit of a soft spot for Kevin Magnussen. It seems Haas have that same soft spot because he's just fitting in so well at that team, and they just seem to absolutely love him. And I think that's a good atmosphere for him to work in to sort of reach his potential. And maybe he moves onwards at some point to something bigger and better. But for a guy who a lot of people thought wouldn't be around in Formula One, I think he's definitely making all the right moves right now. His end of 2014, as we said earlier in the cast, was, in my opinion, a sign of him having turned a corner, and I'm glad to see that extend into this season. And as we've already touched on this in the qualifying review, Grosjean was nowhere in comparison to him. But we've already ridden the Grosjean horse.
We have.
Who was next down the road? Am I right in thinking
Alonso?
Yeah, Fernando, right?
Yeah.
They seemed to make steady progress throughout the race, didn't they? Obviously, we've talked about their qualifying pace being somewhat embarrassing, but they managed to make it count in the race. I was pleased to see Van Dorn close the gap as well.
Especially because, I don't know if you noticed, but he was last at the end of the first lap. He had an awful getaway and got caught up, I think, probably in avoidance, I think, of the Hartley-Perez problems. And so he went from last back up into the points again. So that gave him a nice little way to show that he can actually overtake people and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was impressed and pleased with that drive.
I was hoping he'd find his feet. And I have to say, I like that car better in night. I thought that and the Toro Rosso looked fantastic under the floodlights.
Ah, okay.
Just a slight tangent.
Yeah.
Famously, I wasn't sold on the McLaren livery at first. Not just because it was so bare of sponsors, but there was something about the orange-blue combination that I was not entirely convinced about. But it looked better. And I think at least the race allowed them to salvage something from a weekend that started poorly and got worse in qualifying. So even though they had their emergency meeting and they declared the race, a problem for them, I think they could have left relatively happy with a double points finish.
Oh yeah,
I would have been. Then did we have a Renault in the points?
We did. Then it's Hulkenberg.
Yeah, I thought so. I've slept since the race. You have to excuse me. Again, not not surprising to see him in the points, and obviously that's what they should be aiming for every Grand Prix. They clearly have a car with the pace for it. It's nice to see Hulkenberg with a car, again, that can challenge for Q3 comfortably. And then seeing him convert that to points is always warming the old cockles. Sainz had a difficult weekend. I don't think anybody expected any miracles from him after his qualifying performance, but I saw him putting some moves on in the race. I didn't think he looked... I wasn't concerned, let's put it that way, too much. I think Sainz will bounce back, but good to get some points on the board for Renault. It's a team that I'm excited to see what they can do in the next few years, and I want to see them keep moving forward so they can get there. We can see them at the sharp end again.
Yeah.
Historically, they've always proven able to do it. I think this year's car is such an improvement over last year's, quantifiably so, that it's good to see Hulkenberg converting, because I want to see him be there when Renault eventually get back to the top. And it's obviously well known you and I rate Sainz very, very highly. The press always seemed to do a great job of overlooking him, particularly when he was alongside Verstappen.
Yes.
Stop cutting the corner. Never. Fight me, Charlie Whiting. No, thank you for keeping me honest there, mate. So yeah, it's a mixed result for Renault, but all in all, not too bad. Sauber, we've already touched on during the qualifying review, but super delighted, of course, to see Merrickson break his point stock, which apparently is the longest streak between point-scoring races in Formula One.
What, 50? I'm going to contest that, but I might be including...
It's not the most without scoring. It's apparently the most between races where you have scored points. Because obviously, who was it that was the longest streak without scoring points? I feel it was someone quite recent.
Luca Badoer.
Yeah, that's the one. I always felt he was old when he started his career, kind of like Rubens Barrichello. I'm being threatened with Bernie.
Don't give in to the
Don't
Bernie.
unleash the Bernie. Ooh, actually, thank you for bringing him up. Ooh, nearly had a wee accident there. Thank you for bringing him up, because did you notice that he turned up to the Grand Prix dressed in the clothes he used to wear when he was still in charge?
Yeah.
Complete with the old logo on his lapels.
Yeah, yeah.
God love you, Bernie.
It's like if I pretend, no one will notice. It was all a bit awkward, I found. Because
That's why you did it.
Yeah, I don't actually know what he's supposed to do for anything anymore, or if he's even got a job with it. But yeah, poor Bernie. Never mind. I'm going to contest that, but we'll triple check. I think it belongs to Piercarlo Ginzani, but he also has the worst point to race ratio, but they don't include do not qualifiers and things like that, because he raced for about 10 years in F1 and only ever scored 2 points. But I can't remember what the gap is between them.
You've got a special soft spot for him, haven't you?
He's
Ginzani.
He's my favourite. It's because I loved the Osella team, because they were just like, yeah, we turn up, we race. It was like Minardi before Minardi were along, and then Minardi did it better.
David M says hi. Hi, David M.
Hi, David M.
Yeah, I didn't recognise the username, and I just got some context. It's one of the wonderful people that doing that Grand Prix World Series has caused me to cross paths with, and universally excellent people have contacted me in different ways since I did that. I still need to finish it. The problem is it's on a really old machine, and I've tried to record the grand finale episode about 5 times now, and it keeps crashing. And then you just get frustrated and you go, oh, fuck it, I'll go do something else. But I will finish it, because I'm not really active on YouTube anymore because of work commitments, but I love that game so much and that playthrough. I have to finish it. Yeah, exactly. Pier Carlo Ginzani is to you as Pedro Diniz is to me. I think that's an excellent assessment.
Yes. I'm forever a Luca Badoer man, but Ginzani's my number 2. No, number 3, Olivier Panis, sorry, is my favourite driver of all time. What was I going to say?
You also have a soft spot for Delatraz, right? He's your spirit animal.
Yes! So, can we have a back of the grid driver Sun special moment? I know we're in the middle of the race, but just whilst we're here. So, Formula 2, which was frigging amazing, may I just say. It's slightly worrying me because Sky Sports have noticed that George Russell and McLaren guy Lando Norris are 2 British drivers at the front. So now they've thrown like loads of people in it, and that woman that's the Rosanna woman that's on the F1 channel, they keep on throwing to her in the pits, but she has nothing to say. But it feels like they've got a contract where they have to throw to her every 2 laps in the pits. So the poor guy, Alex Jakes, keeps on going, and now it's down to Rosanna in the pits. And she's like, I'm just down here next to some tyres, and they're a bit worn. And then they go, thanks for that, Rosanna. And it's literally updates like that. It's just horrific. But...
I disagree. More of that, please. More of that.
It's proper cringe.
That's what I want. It's like, down to Ted Kravitz in the pits. Hi, Crofty. I'm just eating a pie right now. Meat and potato. Back to you. Thanks, Ted. I want more of that.
To be fair, I would want more of that too. Don't make me laugh at Breaking Apex. But yeah, but we have the beauty of Jean-Denis Delatraz's son, Louis Delatraz, is in F2 this year and doing quite well, battling and scoring points. I think he did in one of the races. Another race, it was in a sprint race, and they decided to do a pit stop in a sprint race, which often doesn't really work, and it didn't for him. But so he's a top 10 runner in F2, which is lovely to see Delatraz not last. However, Roy Nissany, the son of... he channels his father. He so channels his father. Last on the grid. People came in for new front wings and still came round and finished half a minute in front of him. He was nearly lapped, if not lapped, in sprint race. About 2 seconds off the rest of the field. I was like, did Carmen Jorda have a sex change? It was bizarre. So yeah, maybe he'll get better because it was the first race of the year, and Roy Nissany had done well in other formulae, but they're the other formula where it was quite low grid turnouts. Was it Formula Renault that packed up last year because there was only like 9 entrants. He was in that.
It was.
He was in that and kind of midfield. So God knows, because if you've only got a couple of old chipolatas turning up, you don't really know if they're fast or not.
Where's Jean Alesi's son? Because it seems the sons of successful drivers aren't doing quite so well, are they?
No. So he's in Grand Prix GP3 because Giuliano Alesi could only win when he got reverse pole, because he could only finish 8th in round 1 of a weekend, and then they reversed the top 8. So that was where he got all of his success. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether or not he steps up and does better this time round. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting that sons of backmarkers are doing similar backmarkery jobs in some cases later on. So yeah, watch out, Nissany coming through a blue flag near you.
Yeah, I mean, you would never there are some sort of motorsport families, aren't there? Like, the PKs and so on.
Yeah.
But
move over for the Nissanys.
Never
bitches.
have someone saying he's from the Nissanys.
Yeah.
There's no prestige there.
That beautiful line of Israeli heritage. So slowly they stalled the Minardi. Yeah.
I would love though to have a Delatraz back on the grid.
Yes.
Just for redemption's sake.
Yes, please.
We have 2 laps remaining, 2 laps
Yes.
and change, so we should blast through the remainder.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's good. I'm glad we did it. I enjoy a retro throwback as often as we can obtain a license for one. memory escapes me because I was so excited by Merrickson's double points, which again super pleased about. That I forgot who took the final points paying position. Who did that
Monsieur
go to?
Ocon giving Force India its first points of the year and leaving Williams as the only team without a point.
Ooh, that's a damning indictment, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Although I have to say, fair play then to Ocon. I'd forgotten that he got up that high, but it seems, as we were saying about looking at them in practice, that they've just been so anonymous, like the cameras are never on them, that you don't realise even when they do a good job.
No, the only time I saw him was when they was doing the triple overtake with Lewis. And
Yeah,
he
which
was
is
busy
hardly a
battling.
glory moment in his highlight reel, is it?
No, because he looks like he's about to nerf Alonso off into a wall somewhere
Yeah,
when he
exactly.
brakes, turns, locks up and moves across the track. That's the kind of thing that gets you a race ban in sim racing. So yeah, don't do that, Esteban. But yeah, it's
But nicely
little-
done, and beats Perez to the points.
yeah.
So that doesn't do him any harm, does it?
Not at all, not at all. And he was outclassed in Australia by Perez, so to see it more swing the other way this race, that's 1-1 now, so that's juicy for me.
Any other highlights from the race that you would like to discuss, since we've covered the points finishes now?
I'd like to discuss that Williams both got their cars home and Sirotkin was ahead of Stroll until the very last minute, where he then had to come in for yet another tyre change. Sirotkin hasn't learnt how to deal with tyres yet, but once he's done, he's going to blast past Stroll, in my humble opinion. And the only other thing that I wanted to quickly mention was the weird post-race penalty for Perez and Hartley.
Yeah.
Where Hartley overtook Perez. Sorry, Perez overtook Hartley on the formation lap. Hartley then didn't let him through, so they penalised both. What? Who was in? For me, if Perez overtook Hartley, he was in the wrong, so therefore he should get a penalty. Hartley was, because I know if you overtake back again, it just reminds me of someone just going, whoa. Penalty for you. So yeah, weird loophole, FIA. Sort that one out, please.
Please. No, I agree. That was a bit of a surprise to me. I was under the impression that maybe they collided, and that was a factor as well. Didn't they collide in the race?
Yeah,
There was some
Hartley
contact
went into the
between them,
back
but-
of Perez and spun him round. Yeah,
Yeah, so they had a bit of a scrappy day together anyway.
set the tone.
Seemed a bit gratuitous to penalise them again after the race, because I don't think either of them had a race to write home about. Although Hartley's pace seemed okay in general. But I wanted to talk about Sirotkin actually, which we will do as an addendum.
Yep.
I still don't think he's getting a fair crack from the fans.
No.
And I still think the media are too quick to rub the whole Kubica thing under people's noses. Whenever you see a shot of Sirotkin, you always see Kubica looking wistful at the back of the garage at the same time.
Yeah. I tweeted out that as any good journalism would do, you angrily tweet that is what you're seeing on street, passively aggressive. I popped that out on a tweet, and actually some people had liked it that I'd never heard of. So I don't think we're alone in this. Even if you've still got idiots going on to various comments and going, "Oh, Kubica should be in car." So yeah.
I actually think Sirotkin's had a unimpressive but solid start, and I thought better of him based on his Bahrain performance. In the race. Again, that car's never going to really let him show what he's actually capable of, and I still don't know enough about him to know if he's really top drawer or not. I know that Renault spoke very highly of him, because that was the deciding factor when I predicted that Kubica wasn't going to get the race seat at Williams.
Yeah.
Was that Alan Permain came out from Renault and said they need to put Sirotkin in that seat, and given he was a guy who tested both of them extensively, yeah, I mean, if Sainz hadn't been available, I think we'd be talking about Sirotkin as a Renault driver now, and maybe maybe he'd be showing a little bit more of his hand. At the moment, I feel I can't really judge him because of the car he's in.
Yeah.
It's like I'm also the jury's out for me still on Van Dorn because I just haven't seen enough of him on TV. I know he's had some all right results. I can see the gap, but he's very rarely in front of the camera that I can see how he's taking corners and so on.
Sure,
he's been very anonymous.
Chimpy's popped in the chat. Hartley and Perez are the new Hulk and K-Mag. Who's going to suck whose balls? I wonder.
Hartley breaks my heart a little bit because I know how. Pun alert. No, because I know how good he is. Because I've seen a bit of World Endurance. I've seen how good he is in that series, and I know it doesn't always transfer. It's a totally different series and whatnot. But the fact that he was willing to come back when they needed him after they dropped him, and he'd gone on to win a bunch of world titles, I think shows, it reflects well on him as a competitor. And I so wanted him to do well. And it's not that he's done embarrassingly poorly or anything. I'd hoped for more from him over the course of the Grand Prix because of how well Gasly was able to acquit himself and show what the car could do.
Yeah.
I think he needs to start closing the gap. But I mean, as you and I have said since he signed that contract, he's a
stopgap.
Yeah. For some reason, I wanted to say butt plug.
Well, it could be. Excellent.
He's a butt plug. He's filling a hole until a better offer comes along.
That is such a. I'm going to use that in my daily life now as a thing. I love it.
He's good until you get a better offer, and that breaks my heart a little bit. I would have liked to have seen him have a proper crack at Formula One, because the thing is, like, once Red Bull replace him, I don't feel that other teams are going to look at him and say, okay, we'll give him a chance. Based on his form to date, I'm hoping over the year that he acquits himself really well. Toro Rosso drop him because we know it's going to happen, but he ends up getting a seat somewhere else based on what he's proven capable of doing. Because I given that he's been a multiple champion in endurance racing, unless he goes to IndyCar, I don't really know where he can go now, because it's not like he can go back to WEC, because Toyota are the only competitive outfit and they're fully signed up.
And I suppose you've already done that. If you go back, what are you proving?
Yeah, exactly. Speaking, though, of changing disciplines, the Berlin E-Prix Formula E, Nico Rosberg is racing.
Oh, is he?
He is racing. Apparently a one-off event, but he is racing competitively in the race. At first I thought it was a car demonstration, but apparently he is racing.
What team is he in? Do you know? Or is it like a special entry for him?
No, he's driving for one of the established teams, but unfortunately I've forgotten which one it was. But it's okay. I have the power of Google. I wanted to invite you over to watch that with me, and when I initially looked for tickets, it told me it's been moved to November, but no, it's not. It's next month. It's May.
Oh God, not May.
May. I feel bad for you. I just in chat. Living in Zurich, and the Formula E tickets sold out. There's only 2.5k VIP packages still available.
Oh Christ,
mate! If you can get to Berlin, not only are the tickets very, very affordable and the race very easy to attend, but last year I got in with standing passes for like €5, and because they didn't want the stands to look empty on TV, and it's not very well attended in Berlin, I got upgraded to seating for free. They just walked up and gave me tickets. I had a great event. I was sat at turn 1. I was sat in a stand at turn 1 for €5.
Nice.
I can recommend it. Although I don't think the track lends itself well to action, actually. I don't think there's been a single crash in the 2 I've attended, which is always disappointing. And there's wasn't a great deal of overtaking. But I did see Felix Rosenqvist win, so that made me happy. Nico Rosberg, Formula E. Let's have a look. Who's he driving for?
Because
he's an investor as well, apparently.
Oh, okay. Because the teams are relatively close, but there is a definite team order, and it'd be weird for a top team to move out a driver for one race for that to then ruin someone's driver's championship. It's an interesting collection. Oh, hang on.
See, now I'm being told that he's just demonstrating the car, but I swear I read a piece earlier that he was going to be racing.
Okay.
Yeah, here. Like, there's an article in the Daily Mail. That's probably my mistake there.
Daily Mail. Yep.
So apparently he's demonstrating a Generation 2 car. That's a new one with no rear wing.
Yeah.
And then
snacks.
He's right. I don't know where this has gone, but I swear, guys, I read that he was racing.
Okay. We'll have a rummage afterwards and see.
We'll take a look around because these articles are contradicting each other, and I don't want to give false information. But there are some saying he's demonstrating, some saying that he's competing.
We'll leave the false information to the F1 PR teams.
Yeah. So yeah, figure it out for yourselves.
Yeah. It's a puzzle.
But anyway, not a bad race. I think we recovered quite nicely from a very shaky qualifying session. Double points for the Haas-holes.
We have, and
take a look
only
at the
a few
standings.
seconds apart, and we both had a front wing change as well. So
we did.
We did well. You done it in the right place,
so
though.
Close. We were always so close at Japan. Our pace is always tightest here, and you would have caught me eventually because I noticed at the end of the race you were gaining on me. I'm just a little sad that we weren't able to repeat the 2014 season where we were terrified of racing each other and screaming all the way down. But Bottas is no longer the arsehole. The harsh cheeks are together once again, though still 20 points separate us, though I'm pretty sure that won't be the tail at the end of the season. He's leapfrogged us, though. He's knocked me off my 4th position. In the Constructors, though, we are very safely in 3rd.
We are.
Can't complain.
Not at all, not at all. Just final little things that popped through on the chat, because it wasn't speaking out, even though people were talking. Blue Diamond Gamer says that we both have great racing skills. I don't know what part he watched.
God bless you, sir.
Yes.
Oh, I love you already.
Legend of Rhino, who we've not seen for ages, and actually sent us a message to say, are we ever going to do our community race? And the answer to that is yes, but God knows when. Said it's funny how where people were talking about Hamilton and Verstappen and so on and so forth, there's exactly the same argument going on about Rossi and Marquez in motorbikes.
That's quite a good parallel, actually. Well raised.
And Ivan Arsenal rounded off with, your stream has cured my depression, hashtag it's that deep.
Oh, God bless you. I feel good now. I can end the stream on a high.
Yeah.
Feel positive.
Woo, woo, woo.
And that's not just because I've got a KFC bucket in my fridge. You know, I sent you on Twitter that oh my God moment that KFC were now delivering to my neighbourhood.
Have you just
tested
tested
it? I ordered a massive
out?
bucket of chicken. Yeah, I got a massive bucket of chicken. So big that it will take me 3 days to finish it.
Amazing.
But that's what it's all about. Welcome to the future. Fried chicken to your door.
Beautiful.
It's good. I don't care about jetpacks and teleporters and meals in pill form. What I always wanted was fried chicken delivered to my door by a man in a pink outfit on a bike. And now it's happened. That and the supermarket doors, the swishy doors. That's all we need from Star Trek. I mean, I presume they had fried chicken in Star Trek.
They do now.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Another successful stream down.
Absolutely.
We will return a week on Saturday, I believe.
We will indeed. We will indeed. Chimpy says, can you send some of your KFC to him in the mail? I think the answer to that will be burp.
You can actually. I did one year send a friend toast in the post, and there's a website. I don't know if it's still active, called toastinthepost.com. So if you are hungry, but too lazy to make it yourself, you can have toast delivered in the post.
That's
I sent it to him as a birthday present, and it's based on the fact that the Royal Mail will deliver anything as long as it's addressed and stamped to the correct value. And it was actually delivered, but in a plastic bag with an apology note that it was delivered damaged, which made me very happy. So if you want, I can send you toast in the post. But fried chicken, I'm not entirely sure that's possible, but I'm open to it.
Excellent. Well, I don't think we can top that on the stream. So no, thank you very much everyone for watching. We both say that it's going to be Lewis this time in China, so do let us know in your comments who you think will win, and we'll be back on a weekend again, I think, for the next one.
Yeah, a week on Saturday, because it's no longer a double back-to-back race.
Yeah, no double-headed. So we'll see you then, and have a great raceroo.
Thank you everyone for joining. We do appreciate it. Also, feel free to catch up with us on Twitter. We're usually almost daily now having group conversations over there. You can find me under the same name at Definitely Zero, and you are at Saitorimon, I believe.
Yes.
And we usually spend our afternoon setting the world to rights. So, thanks again. Much love.
Care. Bye for now.
Bye. Love you. Bye.
Oh, that was just in time. My controller was just about to run out of battery. That would have been a shocking way to have ended.